out tonight?
I certainly hope so.
Are you going?
I will be there Friday night. Yeah.
You grew up a Pacers fan?
Grew up a diehard Pacers fan, yeah. Very fortunate to obviously grow up in the age of, Reggie Miller. The last time they went to the finals, I was 7th or 8th grade. So obviously, right in the heart of growing up and a lot of Pacers excitement, especially Pacers and Knicks. So really excited for the Pacers run. There's no question. I'm going to start off by honoring Mr. Irsay as well. So obviously it's been a tough time here the last couple of weeks since the unfortunate passing of Mr. Irsay. As somebody that was, born and raised in Indianapolis, grew up a Colts fan, really fortunate and blessed to be going into my 3rd year here, with the Colts. And just really fortunate and kind of an amazing experience, growing up a fan and then to be able to be in the organization and see firsthand how well the organization is run from top to bottom, the amazing culture that Mr. Irsay built. And only being here a little bit over 2 years with him, I didn't have a ton of interaction, but know from both being a fan, growing up in the community, and then being able to be working here as a Colts coach, he had a tremendous impact on the community. He had a tremendous impact on the growth of football in the state of Indiana, which you can kind of see from the time that I was growing up in youth football to where football is today. In Indiana has a lot to do with Mr. Irsay, the Irsay family, and the Colts organization, which is unbelievable, the impact that they've had. And we're really fortunate, obviously to have Carly, Casey, and Kaylin, as you guys met with them yesterday, to be able to take over and continue that standard, that tradition, and that culture that we have built here that have had such a tremendous impact on the community.
Had you ever met him before you got here 3 years ago?
I had not met him before getting here, no. No, so before getting hired here, I'd not met Chris Ballard before. I'd never met Shane Steichen before. I'd never met anybody in the Irsay family before.
So what was that like to meet him for the first time when you grow up and spend your life here? Like this is the guy who brought a Super Bowl here.
Yeah, certainly everything was really surreal when I was first here. Even when I interviewed and I was in the team room, I'm like, man, I'm probably not going to get this job, but it's unbelievable that I'm in the team room right now, So, and then, just being able to be around and see how everything was run and to be able to meet the Irsay family. I spent a lot more time with Carly because, she's a lot more involved day to day, especially in the coaching aspect of things. So I spent a lot of time, much more time with her than other people in the Irsay family, including Mr. Irsay. But just being able to see how they run things and how they do everything, growing up a fan was obviously surreal. The first time we coached a game, 2 years ago in Lucas Oil Stadium was super surreal. So just everything is, very fortunate and blessed to be able to be a part of the organization.
She said that it's important to put the right people in place and let them do their jobs, but she's involved. Does she give you any tips on special teams kicking, or does she sort of realize what the boundaries are?
Yeah, so it's unique that she's been in a majority of my meetings since I've been here. So she's very hands-on, and I think the thing that she's able to provide some insight in is not kicking or necessarily schematic-based. However, she has a really good understanding of the team, the players, kind of trying to make sure we can get the best out of those players, ways that we can kind of try to help guys in certain ways. And then, she's back there. If something doesn't make sense, she's going to ask a question. So obviously you're like, oh, wow, if that didn't make sense, maybe there's other people that didn't reach as well. So certainly there's different times I get feedback from her. Majority of the time, there's not any feedback or critique, but whenever there's something that does come up where there's a way that she sees that we could reach a player or, make some improvement, she'll certainly say that, and it's been very helpful.
That's the only way you really get to know what you're doing, though, is to be in those meetings and
100%, yeah.
have input with you.
Yeah.
Ryan, you don't see many owners around the league have a headset on the sidelines during games. Were you caught off guard the first time? Do you remember when you noticed her on the sidelines the first time? Yeah,
so really to me, I just respected it, it's a ton of respect that she has spent years being heavily involved in the day-to-day operations of the football organization. She's really detailed and spent a lot of time to kind of know the ins and outs of everything that's happening and wants to make sure that we get, the absolute best that we can as an organization, that we're putting players in positions to be successful and can kind of reach the standard that we have set as an organization. So I just kind of respected that she was going the extra mile to both understand everything that was happening from a schematic standpoint, understanding that, and trying to get the best out of the players, the coaches, and being actively involved. I don't think it's a situation where, obviously it's not a situation where she's actively speaking on the headset or she's stepping on anybody's toes, or there's not any situations where, decisions are being going through ownership in that kind of a realm or situation. So it's not like a situation where anybody's being micromanaged. It's just a situation where she's fully involved in, the success of the organization.
Where have you seen Anthony Gould grow as a return specialist from this time last year to now?
Certainly just the experience. He kind of knows and understands the ins and outs of what's it going to take to be successful in the new kickoff model, what's it take to be successful, dealing with NFL punters. So he's got a lot more kind of experience, comfort. He knows the work and the schedule and the things that are going to be able to take, him to the next level. So he's really, obviously a year ahead going into year two, in a lot better position.
We don't talk about Rigo that much because there's a job with him. But I think 2 years ago he was coming off the Achilles. And then did you see a jump last year? Because a lot of times, at the further you go away from that injury you get, the better you perform. I mean, he did seem to have a strong season. Is there any relationship there, do you think?
Yeah, there's absolutely a relationship, Stephen. So, yeah, obviously great point. So 2 years ago, to start the season, coming off the Achilles injury, he didn't have a full offseason to, one, strength and conditioning, and to, two, work on his punting. So he started off the year a little bit rusty. I think he finished 2 years ago really strong. Last year, what you saw was from start to finish a really strong season. He set the franchise record for punt average. We nearly set the franchise record for net punt. He had an extremely strong season, which really, was him being a veteran that had a full offseason to be able to prepare and do what he needed to do. He's had a really strong offseason again. People don't talk about him, but I think we should definitely talk more about him because he's just really consistent. He's consistent, he's reliable, he's a veteran, he's been here. He's great for the young kickers that we have, and being able to provide them advice on what they need to do to be successful on and off the field, and to be able to assist them to help on the field kind of as their caddy and holder to make them successful. And he's a very good holder at doing those things as well. So really lucky to have Rigo and Luke Rhodes, two really consistent veterans that we can count on.
He's kind of a good example for them because he's like a self-made man too, right? I mean,
100%.
When you were here at the time, and he came in here just kind of like the guy they were just looking at, and he's still here.
Yeah, similar situation to, how Spencer entered the league last year and how Maddox is entering the league this year. He came into a situation where there was a veteran punter that everybody expected to be the starter, and he beat him out and kind of impressed people. And he had a unusual background going from junior college to Hawaii. He was more of a kicker and became a punter. Really similar thing with Luke Rhodes, who was a linebacker who turned into a long snapper after he got to the Colts. So, and played, at FCS football at William & Mary. So both those guys have unique perspective that they can help provide those young guys.
Is there a stat that you look at on punting? Is it net? Is it touchbacks? Is it inside is there something that really?
Yeah, the gold standard, chap, for punting is net punt. Right now, the net punt does not always have to do, or isn't always an indication of the punter. However, to have a good net punt, you have to have a good punter, right? So the net punt is your punt average, right, subtracted from the return yard. So if you have a coverage issue that isn't the punter's issue, that certainly the net punt maybe isn't completely indicative of how the punter has done. But from the whole punt team standpoint, you want to have a good net punt. And the best way to have a good net punt is to have a really good punt with a hang time that correlates to the distance, right? So if you have a 45-yard punt, you want a 4.5-second yard hang time. If you have a 50-yard punt, you want a 5.0-second hang time. You don't want a 50-yard punt with a 4-second hang time because the coverage team won't have the time. Ashton Doolin doesn't have the time to get down the field and force the fair catch. So if you're doing a really good job of directional punting, trying to shrink the field, which Rigo does a really good job of directional punting and getting that ball close to the sideline so the returner isn't out in the middle of the field with a bunch of space, so you can directionally punt the ball well with good corresponding hang time, you're going to have a lot more fair catches and less return opportunities, which he's done a really good job of. So usually you don't want to just look at punt average, to me, which I think a lot of people probably look at punt average, because you can have a wow punt average and punt the ball 51 yards, but not have a good hang time and have a really bad net punt, and you're not helping out your punt team. So net punt's always the biggest thing, starting point for how's that punter doing and how are they helping out their coverage.
But that could be situational too. If you're punting on a shorter field, maybe you've got a great, no return, but a shorter punt.
Correct. And so for then situational punting, you're looking at touchbacks, which 2 years ago he had 0 touchbacks, which was pretty incredible. Yeah.
Spencer is the lead guy in that competition with Maddox.
Spencer certainly, as we kind of discussed earlier on, has a little bit of a step up in that he's already been in the league and he's already been here. But it is definitely an open competition. as I view it, that both those guys are talented young kickers, and we're going to end up going with whichever guy performs the best, under pressure, both in training camp and joint practices and in preseason games.
Brian, you may have talked about this before, but do you anticipate kickoff returns, the number of returns to go way, way up this year, just given the fact that the touchback line is increased 5 yards?
I do, yes. I do anticipate it will go way up because, again, last year, we kind of talked about this last time I was in here, last year the kickoff return rate was the second lowest in NFL history. 2 years ago, it was the lowest in NFL history, so the league said we need to change this. The change was to have this new hybrid or dynamic kickoff model that is sort of a version of what the XFL was doing. The reason that they didn't get quite the increase in returns that they were hoping for last year is because I think a lot of people saw there was an increase in explosive returns. You got the kickoff team kind of stationary, flat at the 40-yard line. Used to be in the old model, the kickoff team was running full speed. They would catch the ball, they'd be around the 30-yard line, and we would already have condensed. So the kickoff team, a little bit more of a disadvantage than where they used to be. And people saw explosive returns happening, which there was a very high rate of explosive returns last year. So people started kicking more touchbacks because you could just get the ball to the 30. However, people are not going to just concede giving the ball to the 35 this year, which is a big deal, right? So with the average starting field position on returns last year being the 29, a 6-yard difference instead of a 1-yard difference last year. So the average return last year went to the 29-yard line. Touchback went to the 30. Is it really worth a 1-yard difference if there's a chance, a higher probability of an explosive return? This year, that's a 6-yard difference since the touchback goes to the 35. So I think instead of seeing that return rate in the 30% range, you're going to see it in the 60 to 70% range. So I think you would see that double because nobody's going to want to just concede the ball at the 35-yard line. If that makes sense. Kind of a long answer, but just kind of give you a little bit of background.
Do you think that means more onus on practice time and repetition during the week? Just
For sure.
To see it way more?
For sure. And that's a healthy balance because I think that happened last year where people practiced it a lot more thinking there was going to be more returns. And we did that as well. And that's the same thing. You still have the same pie that you're pulling, pie being the time that you're pulling for practice time. So if you're pulling more out of your time for kickoff and kickoff return, it comes at a disadvantage to something, which is usually punt. The first season or the start of the season last year, there were more blocked punts than there were the entire season 2 years ago, right? And you did not see that increase in blocked punts later at the end of last season. Maybe that's a coincidence, or maybe a lot of people spent more time on kickoff and kickoff return and less time on punt, and you saw some issues show up at the beginning of the year. So it's kind of a happy medium of how are you going to split improving the kickoff and kickoff return reps while not coming at a contrast or not coming at a disadvantage to your punt team. Appreciate it, guys.